9 now. Time to get the latest in New Science. We do it with Janine Young over at New Scientist magazine, newscientist.com. Janine joining us in Melbourne. Hello, Janine. Come on in.
Good morning to you.
And, of course, this is our, as all features this week, this is our final New Scientist feature. And you were just saying, we started this back in 2007 with you being the correspondent. Gosh, long time.
It is, as I said, for both of us.
Yeah, half a decade. Wow, and so many stories. We've seen so many developments, and some of those developments that we've talked about have been sort of future thinking, and I'm pretty sure that some of that stuff that we were talking about in 2007 has already happened, and probably the scientists have moved on and on to new stuff. You know?
Yeah, there's been a whole generation that's gone through and retired.
Yeah, exactly. All right, well, Let's actually talk about something that is forward thinking. This idea of peak stuff, that is that beyond a certain level of economic development, people will stop consuming. I just wonder if this is true.
Yeah, it does seem like a slightly odd idea, doesn't it? As you say, beyond a certain level of development, this really does apply to developed countries, probably more than developing, but we'll get to that. People stop consuming quite so much energy and raw materials. Technology and economic evolution allow prosperity to rise without a massive increase in use of energy and resources, the linked use of it. A really interesting idea, and indeed there are some statistics to bear out that this might be starting to happen. Certainly in the UK, and I've got a whole bunch of stats here, the country's total material requirement peaked at 2.17 billion tonnes, that's still a lot, in 2001, and had fallen by 4% to just over 2 billion tonnes by 2007, even though GDP rose by 18% in that time.
Right.
Water use is down, travel and car ownership are down, metals and paper use are down, cement use down, calorie consumption, meat eating falling. So on the face of it, this looks really positive and it's a really good thing. Of course, not everybody is quite so enthusiastic or sanguine about the entire thing because you still have increasing use of resources. You might have one country that's down. Indeed, you see stats like the fact that since 1950, the world use of materials, so metal, oil, that kind of thing, has quadrupled, and our greenhouse emissions have increased fivefold. But the economy has grown sevenfold in that time.
Yeah, exactly.
So there's a question about whether or not this will work. And indeed, if you start getting countries such as China involved, they are now the world's largest greenhouse gas emitter. Not surprising given the amount of development and building and infrastructure and dams, we've talked about that before, that they're building. But even though they are the world's largest greenhouse gas emitter, they're also putting real efforts into trying to make themselves really big in solar energy. They're putting in nuclear. So if they can actually get their alternative energy sources in place, they could actually be reducing their inputs by about 4%.
Yes.
In the next few years. So they could actually be doing really well. All this depends on population, technology, and how much we consume. Now, population growth we know is, even though it doesn't seem like it, is declining slightly. The size of families is decreasing. Even in Africa, it's falling, not as quickly as people might have expected. In the developed world, it's roughly 2.5 children per woman. Places like China, it's actually 1.6. So that's starting to come down. That's really positive. How much we consume, again, we've started talking about that. Theoretically, it's coming down. There is the idea that even though we're, downloading music and the like, we're actually buying more things to play it on, and they consume more energy.
Really? No, because I was wondering about that, because in this process of packing up to move overseas, going back through my archives, going back down to the the monster in the basement, that is all the stuff that I kind of forgotten about, that from when I moved in to my current place 4 years ago and just sort of shoved down there. One thing I have found is that over the last 4 years, I have accumulated less stuff than what I used to, because I'm thinking about, say, like video tapes, video cassettes, audio cassettes, CDs, all the stuff that I no longer buy or get because everything is digital. Same would be for books. If I didn't get so many books through the show, I'd probably be getting just only digital books. So I just wonder that, that things may change for people as they go more digital, and I'm looking forward to that fact, and I'm looking forward to the fact that the next 10 years I shouldn't accumulate too much stuff.
It also helps that we're making better decisions around the appliances that we buy. Washing machines, we make sure that they're much more energy and water efficient than they were. We're better informed about the sorts of things that we should be looking for, and we know more about how much they consume. So that might also help contribute to that process. As you say, hopefully over time we will stop consuming as much stuff. Hopefully awareness and all the other things that go with the fact that we need to start reducing our impacts on the planet can actually start making a difference.
Yeah. Hey,
technology really does make a big difference there.
Yeah. Let's finish on the big question. Now, if hair on your head is so important for things like warmth and sun protection, then why haven't bald men become extinct, Janine?
This is actually a question that no one really has the answer to. Indeed, my other half doesn't have all his hair. He's not phased by it, but we certainly know about the warmth and sun protection thing. He looks at me jealously on cold days when I have a full head of hair. He has well, we call it possum simply because it's made from possum wool, but it's a beanie. Makes me look like a thug.
Yeah.
Yes, we laugh about that a lot. Baldness is one of those things that's actually very, very rare in nature. It doesn't happen very often at all when you think about it. The fact that we're bald in the first place is a slightly odd kind of concept. No one quite knows why, in evolutionary terms, it hasn't gone extinct, because there's nothing in it, apparently, that is a positive evolutionary trait. There is a theory that possibly it's all about showing dominance. So when you're angry or when you're showing your dominance, your marvellously bald, shiny head goes red, and that's a sign of power. Except for the fact there's been a lot of very powerful leaders who had a full head of hair. Men have been obsessed for centuries about keeping their hair. Just injecting hot wax under your skin is one of those things, apparently, isn't it, to help keep it work. One of the things that has been happening in the last few years, there's a lot of researchers going into working out the physiology of it, trying to work out physically why it's happening, even though they have no idea in evolutionary terms why. They do know that the base of the follicle, the hair follicle, is a place called the bulge. That becomes larger in normal hair and produces a new hair shaft. In men who are losing their hair, the testosterone, which is in the area, gets converted to dihydrotestosterone, and that has the impact of reducing the ability of these cells to be able to produce the hair shaft. You have a double whammy of the stem cells that are part of the hair production system not being converted into the cells that are required to make hair, and you also have this, a repression of activation of stem cells in the bald parts as opposed to the bits that have hair. So you've kind of got a double whammy where you don't have the signals that tell the hair to grow, and then you also don't have stimulation in the first place. So that much they do know. And I'm sure New Zealand television is just like Australian, when you have all the hair ads talking about how important it is to do hair transplants and all that kind of thing. And they apparently work if you're going to be that fussed and that phased and that concerned by that kind of thing. But you have a fundamental physiological problem where basically your hair cells aren't doing what they were doing before, and therefore they're not being produced. So, but as you say, it's one of those things that no one actually knows quite why they haven't gone extinct, and we still don't have an answer for it.
No. Fingers crossed, still got my hair at the moment, although one wonders after 13 years of mostly early mornings that it has managed to stay in place.
I don't think the time of day has anything to do with it. That's one thing I have worked out.
Hey, Janine, it's been fabulous, and thanks so much for the contributions to the show and commentary, and really making sense of some pretty tough subjects over that time as well. And I guess I think one of our favourites would have to be gut bacteria. We've had plenty of discussions about that.
The last year or two, we do seem to have gotten into that rather a lot, don't we?
Well, fabulous, and I wish you the best of luck there in Melbourne, and with your growing family as well, which is really, really great, and hope to catch up with you at some stage soon.
All the best to you as well. Thanks for everything.
Janine Young there from New Scientist.